Hi there, and welcome to Old School Sports Parenting. My name is Mike Brusco. I am a former college athlete, public school teacher, coach of various sports at various levels up to and including varsity level in high school, and parent of 3 former student athletes, myself, 2 girls, 1 boy. As the title of this channel suggests, I take a very practical, very no-nonsense approach to this subject that often defies current wisdom. I'll remind you that my thoughts are based on my own experience and they're my own thoughts. They're intended to just give you a different way of looking at things and hopefully stimulate some discussion on this subject, which is kids, sports, competition, and being a parent in the middle of all of it. Today's subject, if players could coach their coaches. I'm going to take a little bit different approach to this one and do it in the form of kids being players, competitive student athletes being presenters at a clinic for coaches. What advice would those players give the coaches in the audience? Here are 8 pieces of advice that I'm sure they would get across to them. First piece of advice: Coach, if you're going to tear me down, remember to build me back up again too. If I think I'm better than my opponent, chances are I'm going to outperform him, even if he's bigger or stronger or faster or more talented than I am. Yet you rarely seem to try improving my confidence as a player. In fact, you often do just the opposite. You criticize me to the point where very often I'm going to underachieve. You think you are employing the old tear them down, build them back strategy. But the fact is, you've forgotten about the build them back up part. So you end up convincing me that I'm not very good and probably never will be. Look, Coach, if I need to improve, the best way to start that process is tell me what I'm currently good at, what I need to work on, and then how much better I will be if I focus on improving both of those things. There's nothing wrong with setting the bar high for me, as long as you make me feel like I'm making some progress toward reaching that bar. Got it? All right, second piece of advice, Coach. Look, I don't mind getting yelled at. Just make sure you teach me something too. You know, you coaches get frustrated when we don't perform well, and that's okay. You're only human. And we can handle an occasional rant, by the way, too. We're pretty resilient out here. Come on, Janie, what kind of throw was that? Robbie, what in the world were you shooting at? You're going to lose your temper, and we get that. But make no mistake, your expressions of anger serve no instructional purpose whatsoever. Unless you quickly follow up with some kind of coaching point, you really haven't taught us anything. Aim your shoulder at your target when you throw, Janie. Bring your elbow in when you make that shot, Rob. That kind of stuff. At least we have now picked up a point that can help us improve. So if you find yourself wondering why you're doing all this yelling and not seeing any improvement, maybe it's because we're hearing all this yelling and getting no instruction. Okay, here's a third piece of advice that players would be giving to coaches at a clinic. Quit assuming that it takes a bunch of yelling and screaming to get us ready for a game or a match. It's so stupid when coaches scream, "You guys aren't ready to play. You sound too quiet." Believe me, when you tell me that I'm not ready to play, your prediction is probably going to come true. For heaven's sakes, we have enough to think about without you convincing us that we're about to get our butts kicked. If you're lucky enough to have some vocal leaders on your team or even on your staff, fine, let them do their thing. And if you feel like you're up for whipping us into an emotional frenzy, go for it. But otherwise, let us prepare the way that we want to prepare. Every game and every team is different. Let it ride. We'll be ready to play. Item number 4, let me start by saying, okay, we get it. Most people call it nagging. It's when somebody harps on a subject endlessly, long after they've made their point. If you've been on the receiving end of that kind of thing from a coach, you know how resentful it can make you and how quickly you start to tune it out. I react the same way, okay? When you repeat the same criticism over and over and over, especially in front of the whole team, it just gets aggravating and embarrassing. And honestly, I'm often going to forget what you were telling me in the first place. Okay, I don't always respond with improvement the first time you've made a point. So, but that's not a reason to keep hammering me all practice. Make your point and move on. If you have to come back to it later in the practice or maybe tomorrow, that's fine. But leave me some buffer time so I can catch my breath a little bit and hopefully digest what you've told me. Speaking of nagging, item number 5 that players should be giving their coaches: don't gang up on me, all right? I hate it as a player when a coach just lays into me and about a mistake, and as soon as he's done and I think I can move on, another coach chimes in with the same coaching points again. 2 people suffer when this happens: me, for obvious reasons, and the coach that made the point in the first place, because I've probably long forgotten what he or she was trying to tell me. So once one of you tells me something, I don't need more people to pile on and say the same thing. Coaching the coaches, point number 6. We learn by doing, not by listening to you talk. Once you get us out on the field or the court or wherever, make sure you're using the maximum amount of time for us to practice. If we spend more than 10 or 15% of a coaching segment, a practice segment's time listening to you talk, you're wasting our time and we're not learning anything. All right? So make your coaching points ideally while we're practicing, instead of bringing the whole thing to a screeching halt and while you pontificate about something. It's called coaching on the run. It keeps practice moving along, and it prevents all of us from getting bored. Okay, 2 more last pieces of advice that players are giving to coaches at this Players to Coaches clinic. Item number 7, throw away your book of sports cliches. You know, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. There's no I in team. These people put their pants on one leg at a time, just like you do. Your teammates are your family. You know, you need to play for them. These kinds of old-fashioned sayings make you sound insincere at the very least, and really out of touch. If you can't think up your own clever sayings to say to us, it's the last thing you want to do is use somebody else's. Speak from the heart. You might not sound clever all the time, but at least we will know that it's you that we're listening to. Got it, Coach? All right. Last but not least, tell me why I'm not playing and what I need to do more of to get in the game. You act like my depth chart status is based on some magical mystery formula that will turn to dust if you release it from its hermetically sealed container on Funkin' Wagnall's porch. You know, it makes me angry and it makes me confused, and it really doesn't help team unity either. Here's a news flash for you, Coach. We subs are not buying your story about everybody contributes no matter how much they play. We never really feel part of the game, especially wins and losses, unless we get into the game. You can rationalize that all you want, but I'm telling you the truth here. If you really want backups like me to stay motivated and productive, tell me what I need to work on, and I'll work on it. You know, set goals for me the same way you do for the starters. At practice, you know, make an effort to watch me a little bit and evaluate me and compliment me on my progress if I'm making some. You know, you might need me someday to go into a game, and when that day comes, I'll be much more likely to respond if I know that you were there for me when I needed you. Thanks.